Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, it's about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Motherland, Fort Salem. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So obviously we pick up immediately after the events of last episode where we have Tally confronting Sarah about what she knows about the martyrdom, and it's like, right, even like Nick did, like, why is she removed from the history books? Because it's like, right, Sarah's like, yeah, I failed as a, that time I removed myself from it because, right, that was a time where I kind of failed and I don't want to be reminded, but associated with one of my greatest personal failures. Is like, what about Nick? It's like, well, she had to be removed from the books because she ended up quitting the army sometime after all of that. So it's like, yeah, that was another personal failure. Like, I was about to say you don't rewrite history like that, but it's like, well, you do. History is written by the winner, as they kind of say. So, I mean, you're the one that's kind of in charge of everything, even though, once again, it doesn't seem like you are. But at least in this in the section that comes, when it comes to the army and stuff like that, you're in control of, like, the narrative of all of that. So, but obviously Tally's not satisfied with it because it's like, I know that there's more going on here, which I even love Sarah being like, honestly, you're not owed anything. For first and foremost, like, the fact of the matter is you came in here barging, asking for answers, but then all of a sudden it's like, right, I'm having all these memories, and Sarah's like, wait, what? It's like, we're connected. It's like, no, we were. I'm gonna get Isadora to give you some stuff that'll kind of get rid of those dreams, but obviously, like, Sarah didn't, so, because obviously Tally's been keeping that a big secret. The only people who've known are like Rael and Abby, that she's been having those, like, those visions, those dreams and everything, those memories of Sarah's. But, I think I can understand also where Sarah's coming from, because for one, it's like, right, I've done a lot of stuff in the past I'm not proud of. I've done stuff that, like, not everyone's done stuff they're not proud of, but it's like, what she did, I think in her mind was like, it was for the betterment of everything. They didn't join us when they should have, so, I mean, it is kind of like, once it showcases a very distinct pattern that Sarah has of, like, you don't go along with what I want, I'm going to make you in some shape or form. If you're not going to play the role that you should play, I'm going to cast the role for you. You get what I'm trying to say? It's so interesting that we see that history repeating. I mean, hell, even to the point, it's like, oh, the president's kind of under the weather. And then even Petra being like, I'm sure she is, because it's like, right. I don't know if it, like, being controlled like that takes a toll on a person, or whether it's just simply they're still trying to keep the president away from her because they have some idea of what she's done, not once but twice. So maybe that's what that is. It also makes you wonder, has she ever done that in the past too? Well, I'm saying, like, well, in the sense of, like, controlling someone like that, it's like, that's probably why, because Sarah's probably done it. She probably, at the very least, she tries to limit it, but it's also like, right, there's no oversight. Like, who's there to check and balance you when you're able to control the president and get whatever you want? Once again, it's for the greater good type of thing. At least that's how she'll justify it. But at the same time, I will admit, it's like, right, Alder's business is Alder's business. It's kind of not Tally's business to be all up in her stuff like that, because those are her memories, not yours to kind of, yes, you're not actively doing that, but you're unintentionally, like, rummaging through her memories. It's like, you wouldn't want anyone rummaging through yours. You tell them to mind your own business. So it's like, there's a part of me that's like, I understand where Sarah's coming from that, like, mind your business about my past. But at the same time, there's also the aspect of, right, but there's a deep, dark conspiracy going on here, because even though Alder literally was like, there's no conspiracy. There's super conspiracy when you're covering up your involvement in certain things in history, as well as removing a soldier from history as well. Like, you got some, stuff to cover up. Another property recently did something like that, kind of talking about, like, removing a certain character from the history books in certain regards. I thought that was really, really interesting. I'm sure these for different reasons. That was kind of like the terrible nature of this world reason. This show, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I do believe, like, Nick ended up going off and starting a spree. So I think that's why it's even more of her personal, because, like, either there was something between them, either on a friendship level, I mean, just a friendship sister level, not unless there was, like, more. Whatever the case may be, the betrayal stung deep, and it's like, right, I don't want people to know that the person who started the spree was actually one of my closest confidants, potentially, you know, so there's that angle to it. You have Rael confronting Anacostia about the picture and everything. It's like, no, Scylla, like, she's supposed to be locked up, and it's like, right, fine, Rael, we're aware of her circumstances, I'm not at liberty to tell you more. I mean, hell, me even saying this much isn't, you know, enough. You know, it's like, so where'd she get this picture? And Anacostia is like, it says, oh, I'm at liberty, I wish I could help you. But I'm curious, does even Anacostia know? Like, I think that thing's watching them, like, but I don't know, like, how much Anacostia overheard or knows that that's Rael's mom. I don't think she knows. She knows that Scylla got I mean, maybe she does know, and it's just kind of like, that conversation hasn't come up about what she has overheard. Like, I don't, like, that thing, like, tracks Scylla. I'm assuming it listens in and hears, but I don't know if it heard that conversation about her being Rael's mom, you know, so it might be even more reason why Anacostia is, like, dodging the question, because it's like, but I think that's, like, I don't think she does know. I don't think she called, because I feel like that would have come up in conversation by now between Scylla and Anacostia, but it hasn't, so we'll see. So obviously for Rael, it's like, right, like, how did she get this picture of me? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But also you have Abigail, who's going through a lot. Not only is it like, oh, not only did your cousin get murdered, so did other family members you weren't even aware of got murdered. And then, like, oh, you almost got murdered. Like, well, as she says, a second time. Because they tried to kill her at the wedding, and now they tried to kill her again. And she's telling her mom, like, oh, you wouldn't understand. She's like, oh, why wouldn't I? It's like, because you weren't stupid enough to fall for their trap. So she's kind of in this cycle of despair and anger, because it's like, right, you should have told people it was the Camarilla, but what did you do? You said it was the spree, and it's just kind of like, we should be doing more. We need to hunt them down for what they've done for Charvel, for me, but for all their victims. And she's just kind of drowning in despair, and then, like, Grigori ends up telling her about, oh, cool, the whole thing that happened with Adil and Khalida. It's like, cool. It's just one blow after another. It's like, that sucks. She's already at a low point in that, especially where her and Adil left things. As she even brought it up last time, it's like, I blamed him for Tareem getting killed, but it's like, she was just lashing out because she was projecting her own insecurities and issues onto him, because it's like, she felt like she couldn't do anything for the person that mattered to her, just like, you know, he couldn't really do too much for his people. Like, that's all it was. It was just her projecting it, because she's like, I don't know why I don't know why I said that to him. It's like, because looking at the way Adil was handling things, I think it made her look at, like, it was almost like looking in the mirror to a certain extent. So I think that's just what pissed her off. Like, she was just lashing out at him because of her own, like, seeing her own insecurities and stuff manifested in the form of Adil, essentially. But now it's like, right, knowing that that's potentially the last time she ever saw Adil. He left here because of her, and he wouldn't even been in that situation if I hadn't said what I said. And that being the last thing I said to him, potentially, like, that just rocks her to the core. So, obviously, it's one of their traditions as around the Halloween times. And one of the aspects of that tradition is that they go to these fires. They set a fire because it's part of a tradition where it was during a specific battle that there were, like, it was freezing cold weather, and they couldn't light any fires, because if they did, it'd give away the position. And sadly, they had to light one fire because it was just too cold, and that one fire was enough to give away their location, and they were all slaughtered. No one survived that battle. Because it kind of reminds me of, like, a thing, like, I didn't notice until, like, I think Perry Mason might be the first show I ever knew that talked about that. I mean, it's probably come up in other stuff that I'm just not, I don't remember, or just I haven't watched anything else that's covered it. But the whole thing about how soldiers back in the day, I don't know if it still applies now. I mean, maybe it's still tactic, but how you smoke your cigarette, you cup the flame of the smoke of the cigarette, because that light will give your positioning away, for one, to a gunner, a shooter, but also probably, like, just the enemy in general, get the general gist of where you are. So that's a whole thing. So it kind of reminds me of that. But basically, it's part of, like, it's almost like this interesting game where, like, those ghosts come back to, like, extinguish the flame, and if you're able to keep the flame alive, at the end of it, you'll be rewarded by being able to talk to whoever you want to, the dead, you know? And because obviously there was a conversation for Abigail where it's like the dead have no wants or whatever, so who cares what because they're just dead. Like, there's no wants, there's no need, they're just dead, you know? Not in the most optimistic mood, obviously. But Tally's like, right, we need to try this. Like, what if the dead do have wants? Like, we need to actually talk to them and find out. So each one of them's got different people they want to talk to. Tally is Valda, who was part of the martyrdom. Abigail, Charvel, and Rael, her mom, not even realizing her mom is not dead. But, I mean, other than her mom, like, who else would she want to talk to? I don't think there's anyone else significant enough that she would want to talk to anybody else, you know? So... And so they do their best to defend. I was about to say, because it was like, yeah, don't get hit by the arrows. I'm curious, like, is there anything that would happen? I mean, maybe it's just because, like, right, you get hit by the arrows. They're not just ghost arrows. They become legitimate arrows. But maybe, like, ghost-infused arrows, like, will rot you away given enough time. I mean, luckily, Rayo was to kind of help Grigori. But I'm wondering, like, if it had prolonged, like... I mean, you only have to go into, like, the final stroke of midnight. So maybe upon that, like, when they ultimately ended up disappearing, it disappeared any issues that would have left Grigori. But if he had been, like, in that for an extended period of time, maybe it would have eventually, like, maybe the ghost energy would have legitimately been, like, poison. So that's interesting. Also, Rael kind of stepped, like, right, like, we gotta win this. And so she, like, charges at one of the ghosts and fires back. Luckily, the final arrow shoots, but it strikes midnight, so it's over. So, afterwards, everyone gets their candles. It's like they only have until the candles burn, until the candles completely melt, and they burn out, to talk to the pretty people. It's like, but that doesn't seem like it's long and all. And M is like, it never is. You know, it makes you want, well... We know Grigori, he was like, I'm going to tell Libba you said hi. She's like, give her my best, you know. It's like, of course, that'd be the person he would contact. So everyone goes their separate ways. Obviously, Rael's is the saddest one because she's like, for her, it's like, my mom, why didn't she want to talk to me? Because for her, it's like, I need to talk to my mom now. Like, this is an opportunity I can't pass up. I need to know, like, where, like, her final, like, thoughts. Like, because for her, it's like, I played our conversation, like, what I would have said to her, like, over and over again, and now I have the chance of, like, right, this is what I will say, and then she'll say this. It's like, she had worked it out so much in her head, and not to even have that opportunity. Sadly, she doesn't know her mom's still alive, so I mean, it's a benefit and a detriment, sadly, because, well, for one, it's a benefit because, yeah, your mom's alive, but sadly, your mom's alive because it's like, wait, you've been alive this entire time and you've made me and Dad believe you're dead. Also finding out, oh, my mom's part of the spree. Cool. Oh, my mom's the one that sent Scylla after me. Cool. It's going to be blow after blow after blow when those revelations come out, you know, for Rael. So that's definitely going to be interesting. I skipped over it a little bit earlier. I want to circle back to the train in India. Luckily, Khalida and Adil ended up escaping alive. They were the only ones. But man, I wasn't expecting that. Was it that general, like, getting got like that? Wow. Also, like, how rapidly spread that was. I guess, like, that's a more potent version of something like that. For it, like, it wasn't just like, oh, it was on a personal level. Like, no, it consumed the entire train to the point, like, the whole train went off the rails. Once again, we have no idea how many people were up there, but those two were the only ones that survived. And it's like, wow. I mean, granted, her and, Alder didn't see eye to eye, but there's also that thing of, like, right, you still want people around who will challenge Sarah because you don't want there to be more yes men around Sarah because she kind of already gets her way anyway, so it kind of defeats the purpose because she's going to make enough yes men around her. But so there's that element to it. Oh, and since speaking of Sarah, there is a conversation of her and Petra are talking about the fact is that all the, like, testings have been stopped, so, like, there's no potential of finding any more, like, witches right now. It's kind of like orders. I mean, to be fair, because there's going to be so many people in danger, plus there's a whole thing of, like, right now, our daughter, so that's just going to escalate things a lot more anyway. But on top of all of that, with the... God, what was I thinking? Oh, yeah, with Sarah and everything. They're kind of like, it's like, right, we need to at least, you know, and I thought it was interesting, she sent Petro to be the one to talk to the vice president, because he's like, yeah, he's not the biggest fan of me. Like, maybe he'll listen and be more open to the idea if you talk to him. So, because they've at least got Penelope, and like we need all the allies we can get. So, like, at the very least, he'll kind of support us at the very least, because at least his daughter's going to be mixed up in this, and she's potentially a target. So it's like, right, he will be an ally to us simply by proxy of, right, he wants to protect his daughter. So there's an element to it. But circling back to everyone's wants and needs, obviously, Tally learns the truth about everything, about like, oh, like the martyrdom. It's like, why did you guys kill yourselves? It's like, well, you think we did this for ourselves? It's like, no, they were going to. It's like, right, Alder's army is coming this way. And I'm sorry, guys, but we've already surrendered. Instead of like joining this fight, I guess like the surrender is like, oh, like surrendered in the sense of like we're not going to take part in this, but we are going to surrender to the other side. And it's like, no, we're not going to give any leeway to the enemy. I think is kind of why that happened. I guess maybe in Sarah's mind it's like, right, they were traitors. It's like, right, why they were going to abandon us rather than sticking together and fighting. They were going to abandon us. So why not make their deaths mean something? And that martyrdom actually, probably benefited and gathered more forces on their side. So once again, this is probably like the contributing factor that led to the spree's birth of like, right, like the fact is this militarization of witches, like what it's made us into, what it's made you into, Sarah, whereas you're willing to sacrifice others that don't follow your mode, follow your lead. So there's that. What Tally's ultimately going to do with that information, we'll have to wait and see. But then there's also Abigail, who gets confronted by Charvel, who's like, you're a failure. Not, you didn't fail me, you failed yourself. The fact of the matter is you let yourself get tricked because, it's like, no, it's like they played on your insecurities. It's like that fear inside of you. You are the last of our line. It's up to you to kind of push that fear aside. You have to be, you being the last bellwether, have to be the one to get our vengeance. You're the last of the line. So, kind of basically make them pay. Because it's just, once again, her own fears because, right, it's like, she's like, but I'm a soldier. I can only do so much. It's like, no, you don't need to be a soldier right now. You need to be a warrior. Almost, it's like, right, you're telling other people what they need to do, but at the end of the day, you're not doing what's necessary to get the job done. So basically, get your shit together and then, like, find them and make them pay. So, and she's even made it like, I'm gonna find the people who killed Charvel, and then I'm going after the Camarilla, which Hallie was like, whoa, don't do that. Like, don't do it by yourself. That's kind of crazy. And Abby's like, right, you're right. But then, like, she finds out about Adil. Adil's live and he's back. Kalita's, like, fine, but, like, she knew, like, Adil wanted to see Abby, because for him, it's like, Abby, you're, like, all I've thought about, you're all I can think about, And it's a thing of, it's, being hunted gives you a different perspective on things, so he's going to be her ally in this. Like, even if they have to kind of do it alone, like, they're going to make the Camarilla pay for everything that they've done. It's like, right, so let's wipe them out. Speaking of the Camarilla, we have Anacostia and Scylla joining up with, like, that husband and wife again, and it's like, oh, we're going to this party, and it's like, oh, I guess in my mind, I thought they were more directly connected to the Camarilla. I guess they kind of are, but, like, they're, like, an adjacent group. It's like, oh, we're trying to impress, like, oh, here's the Camarilla. They like what we do and what we represent because we represent what they represent. I don't think it was a thing of, like, oh, I think there's the go-between of, like, there's people from the Camarilla, like, searching out like-minded people, but I thought that group was already connected to the Camarilla, but it's like, no, they were indirectly connected. I don't think they were as, like, like I said, they were Camarilla adjacent. I thought they were just straight up Camarilla people, but no. The moment he was like, oh, because I got invited to this party because I got them a gift, I thought he was going to say, like, the equipment from last episode. I thought that was going to be what he got, but it's like, no, that's not what that is. So I thought that was... That's not what it was. We find out what it was because they brought it up earlier. Well, like their daughter was like, "Oh, can we find Tiffany?" It's like, "Oh no, Tiffany." I thought like, "Oh, you're just trying to like lie to your daughter so you can like keep her away from Tiffany." Oh no, it turns out Tiffany was the gift, which is like more messed up. I mean, to be fair, in the Salem witch trials, weren't some of the people they killed like actually not that old? Some of them were like little girls themselves, like on the cusp of like preteens / teenagers. So I don't think a lot of them were women. I mean, because also you have to think about like back in the day, like what classified as like age wise, what was considered a woman, what was considered an adult in general, male or female. You know, so I don't know, because I'm always remembering like adaptations of the Salem witch trial stuff, and obviously you're getting actors who are a little bit older playing younger roles, but I think the characters of like some of the people who were killed back then were of a younger age, or at least those tried for witch crimes. So, you know what I'm saying? So I guess it shouldn't be that surprising that the Camarilla is like, oh, let's sacrifice this child. The fact is, all those people had stones. I was like, are they going to legitimately stone her to death? It's like, Jesus, like, do you people like? It's just like, I mean, I guess there's not more evil than being like, oh, these people, they're willing to kill a little girl because she's a witch. So I guess that's like the ultimate form. Like, yeah. That shows you just how far like the scale is tipped that they're willing to go that far. But Anacostia and Scylla weren't going to let that happen, so Scylla reveals herself as Anacostia beats the crap of that dude that they were following before. It's like, yeah, kind of kicked your ass before, but you don't remember it. This time, we're going to, you're going to remember this time. And Anacostia turned off the lights, and so Scylla does her things, but most of those people are just regular people, so they ran away scared, And so, and this was actually the first time we've ever seen that, like, the stealing of someone's face, because we've never actually seen how that happens. Because before, I was under the impression, like, I brought this up earlier when I was reviewing season 1 of early episodes of season 1. I was under the impression basically the person whose face you stole, you had to kill them to get it. It's like, no, but you can if you want to. I wonder, do you only need to like maybe like burn a picture of that person and then you get their, I don't know, but like she straight up burned his face. This is the first time we've seen that angle too. So I think that's the more like aggressive killy version of that, where you like, oh, you literally burn that person's face and you absorb the essence of it. I mean, maybe he's still got his face and fine, but it's like they went through the trouble showing it getting burned like that. So I'm assuming you're literally like kind of, it's the more magical version of skinning someone, I guess, to a certain extent. Very Skinwalker-esque of, in a more, not, in a messed up, but not nearly as messed up way. But then later on, when they were at his house and the guy's waking up, and the moment it's like, oh, she left her pencil. I was like, that's most likely Scylla in disguise. Like, oh, notice she didn't put the pencil down. Oh, you poor bastard. And she ends up stabbing him in the ear. To be fair, it's like, right, you were willing to sacrifice a little girl. I made sure to like stick it to you more so than anybody. I mean, in this case, literally. Just because it's like, it takes a new level of scumbag. I mean, I guess that's also why Scylla went through the trouble getting his face, but killing him, once again, potentially killing that cop dude in the process. Because, right, you were willing to, you set this all up, you were about to kill this little girl in the process, so. And they made that whole conversation about his wife, Bonnie. I'm guessing she knew or didn't. I don't know. All he said was like, oh, she was too weak for it. She didn't have the stomach. So it's like, right, she probably wasn't too keen on killing a kid. But Scylla's like, right, like, let your life be more than just hate, because it will consume you. Because I guess Scylla's coming from that perspective, because she got grilled out by that Spree member of talking about how weak she's become, but it's like she has a new perspective on things now. She's not as hate-filled as she was before. Like, she found love, and I think that changed a lot for her. Changed her. She's not the same person she was at the beginning of season 1. She's changed in many different regards. So I guess Rayo was kind of a positive contributing factor in that. But it's like, right, you're telling her not to be consumed by hate. Like, live for something better. Live for something more. Live for your daughter, which I think is just, I was like, that's ironic for you to say, not for her to give in to hate when she's immediately going to walk in on her dead husband because of you. But it's like, your husband wasn't a good person, but right, this is just going to make her hate witches more. Is going to probably make her double down. Like, where she might have had, like, reluctancy before, like, to some extent, why she was kept out of everything. But now she's probably going to double down, and now her daughter's probably going to grow up hating witches because, like, right, a witch killed my dad and everything. So, and also knowing, like, right, she doesn't know Scylla's real name, but she remembers her face, so might be an issue for later on, but we'll ultimately have to wait and see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.